because I want everybody's thoughts on the different things we're talking about. So, Terry.
Lots of options. Lots and lots of options out there.
Jen?
Yeah. Well, immediately when you said that, I was thinking, coming from England 40 plus years ago, coming to America was much more diverse. So that's what I thought of. Oh,
I know, I want to hear you louder. I am very interested.
well, I just think coming from the UK 40 plus years ago. Oh. Do I have to? Just coming to a more diverse country, and then with all sorts of diverse ideas that were not in my yeah. Sorry. Mhm.
Just for a little bit of a different tack, I thought of divert, and that kind of thought of like diverting the energy, like a tree has all these diversions, that different trajectories that you can take in terms of whether you
Cool. Tony?
I don't know what the topic specifically
It's just when the first thing on your mind when you hear the word diverse,
diverse.
without putting political, ethical, or labels on it.
I hear the word diverse and I think of divide. That's the first place my mind goes to. And if it's energy, it's divided energy. You know, I can't go with ethnicity, so I just go divided culture of energy. You know, so we all come from particular areas that are the same, but it's a separated energy of how it's collaborated together. That's all I got.
Right, that's fine.
Okay.
There are absolutely no wrong answers. What we're doing is we're finding out what each of us. Okay. Everybody comes from a different point of view. Everybody has different life filters, education, experiences, and this is kind of a starting point so that we see that and kind of understand. Again, there is no right or wrong answer here. The answers are your personal answers of what you see and what you feel, and we're going to start there and work our way deeper into the subject until we can find a place where we have a commonality, where we can see somebody else's point of view and maybe adopt it for our own, or incorporate that into our own way of thinking about things. Okay? So now I'm going to change the word just slightly, and I'm going to go to diversity.
Oh man, what is diversity? What was the first question? Diverse? Now you want diversity? Well, I mean, my first thought is that there isn't a difference, right? I mean, to be diverse would be to have many, right? And then diversity would be the presence of many. So I think that's getting way too philosophical into the words. Is it? Maybe. Diversity to me is allowing the multitude to be present, right? Um, it's the opposite of a singularity. It is really the true encompassing of community. So if I were to define a word with a word, diversity would be community, right?
Yeah.
Diversity, openness to ideas, thoughts, views, opinions. Instead of being a singularity, it's being open to everything that's out there. Because the universe is diverse, and people are diverse, and elements are diverse, and landscapes are diverse, and all that. So to me, it's being open. It's being open to all the possibilities, and not passing along judgment on any of those possibilities.
Yeah, diversity to me talks about all the many ways that people conduct their lives.
I think about different choices, many different choices and different ideas when I think about diversity.
That is exactly what I was going to say. Fine minds think alike, I think. Choices was the word I was going to use too.
Thank you. I don't have an answer. You gave up the answer I had, so I had to look it up. Yes.
Okay, so Tom, what do you think about diversity?
Oh, we're recording now. I am chewing now. Now I'm not chewing. Yeah, my answer stays the same, and it's a variety of options with a variety of potential outcomes.
Okay, new word, new challenge. Hello, Anita. Coming in, grab one of the chairs off the top there and move yourself over here. Okay, so we've talked about diverse, we've talked about diversity and explored that. I'm going to give you another D word, divisive. What comes to your mind when you think of divisive?
You're killing me here. Do the same rules apply? No religion, no politics, etc. Because the only thing that comes to mind right now is politics.
Sounds like divide
Right.
and decide at the same
No,
time.
well, I guess Heather has a point there. I mean, decisions. So we have a multitude of decisions.
Just off the top of my head, I think of division is a good one, right? I think of contrarian, opposite. I think of non-productive divisiveness is what comes to my mind.
I think of mathematics, divisive, just breaking down problems. Yeah, breaking things down. That's how I look at it.
I look at divisiveness as at odds.
I think of it as oppositional.
Yeah.
Thank you. Young man, I had to look that word up. Sir. I had no clue what divisive is. I haven't ever used it in my vocabulary. So it just read tending to cause people disagreement or hostility between people. So it's like a highly divisive issue on a certain topic. That's the most I got out of it.
But you got something out of it.
Sir.
Yes. Anita? First thoughts on divisive can't be political or trying to avoid labels.
Parted waters.
Parted waters. Okay.
With intent to divide.
Okay, so that was a really hard thing because we said no labels, no politics, no religion, no. So we're just using the raw words and we're seeing how we reflect what we think about those words. Tonight's topic, by the way, is the tools culture uses to keep us from moving forward. Okay, so when we talk about perspective, you have to understand. And last week's class was about perspective. When we talk about perspective, you have to understand that changing your perspective sometimes requires you to understand how people use what you say and what you think against you. and or to stop thought, to stop movement, to stop us from changing who we are. So I like to use words like divisive, which is obviously a very charged word in this culture. Oh, you need it? Okay.
I don't actually think the mic is on.
It is.
Is it? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. I can hear it, but everyone on YouTube and Facebook. Oh, God.
Can hear it fine.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, the point of the exercise is to look at the words we use, because words can be used against us, and we all use words differently. We all think about words differently, and words can be changed. I will use my favorite topic here, and some people might be mad at me for this or not. I mean, I have some friends that completely embrace this idea, and I look at them and go, really? And why do you embrace this? Because they don't think about the meaning of the word that they're using. And that word is sustainable. For decades now, everyone throws sustainability out as the goal. And I said, really, do you know what the root word of sustainability is? It's sustainable. And what do you do when you sustain? You're just getting by. You're not going up, you're not going down. You're just getting by. Is that the goal? Is that what we should be looking for, the goal for what we do? Or should we look at it differently? Because I don't personally find sustainable sexy. I think sustainable is the foundation on which we build, not the goal. This is just one of the words. And then you take a word like green or environmental or sustainable, and people change the meaning of the word. The media does this, advertisers do this, corporations certainly do this, and this is how they co-opt an idea. They change our understanding of the word. And suddenly everybody's using it. I'm actually in the middle of this right now. I've been saying resilient communities thrive for 7 years. Suddenly everyone uses the word thrive. Everyone's using the word resilient. And I'm like going, so where did all this come from? And basically they don't even know what the word means the way they're using it. But this happens to us all the time. So I'm going to pass the mic around. I want you each to tell a story about a word or an experience you've had where you feel like the word doesn't mean what it's how it's being used. And all of us, if you think about it, have that experience to some degree. So I'll start with
Oh, goodness. Cage free.
I was just watching the news tonight, and I saw Greta Thunberg on about climate change, and this is not a word; it's a phrase. But she was talking about what politicians are not doing, and so she was saying, "Blah blah blah." Now I don't know if that it just struck me as so profound that she would this is what we hear when we hear people who are in charge and people with lots of money and corporations, and we hear that.
Okay, what are we doing again?
Okay, so we're telling a story about how a word that you hear frequently is misused.
Organic.
Or hasn't been organic.
There's a lot of stuff that's claimed to be organic, which is not, basically, or fat free, or all those labels they put on your food.
Oh. Truth. Truth.
Kind of fluid, that one. Okay.
It's very fluid, you know.
We're all set here.
Okay, you're all good. So Marwan, you wanna?
No, we're already square.
Yeah,
We're set. It's on.
Okay, so the thing is, what word or concept have you heard that has been misused or changed
I know you're trying to avoid politics and religion. No, no, politics. So, you're next. You're next. News. News. Journalism has gone straight to hell. So, news is no longer informative. News is whatever the agenda of the day is.
Organic.
Oh, you and Terry.
Oh, I didn't hear yours. I was back there. Yeah. I'm so sick of hearing
For me, is love.
Steve.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I feel you. I feel you. That one's tough. I want to add on that one. A lot of for a long time, very close person to me said, expectation or happiness is having your expectations met. So I just have two words to say: Valentine's Day.
Politically correct.
I guess you would call it.
Natural.
Like natural immunity.
Yeah.
I'd say for me, it's freedom. Coming from being a hobo and getting around via by foot or by freight train, or whenever somebody's looking the other way around, people don't really know freedom until your lack of action is what decides whether you live or die.
Literally. I literally jumped out of my seat when you asked this question.
Did you hurt yourself?
Literally hurt myself.
Okay, so you're starting to see how these statements, these words, start getting to use against us, or what I call co-opting. My story about this is simple, and I want you each to think about a story where it has been your experience, and I'm actually really excited to hear yours. And I talked a little bit about this last time. I was raised in the 60s. I was born in 57. I was raised in the 60s. I watched the 60s happen in Southern California, was very aware of it. By 1975, I was wearing striped bell-bottom jeans, Peter Mac shirts, and had my hair down to my shoulders in a very fancy cut that costs like $40 back then to get that done. So the 60s became a fashion statement less than a decade later. The music of the 60s and protest music don't exist anymore. We're still listening to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young when we want to listen to a protest song. Nobody new is doing anything. No one's speaking out. This is how it gets co-opted. It becomes a fashion statement. It becomes a marketing opportunity for corporations. It's not a conspiracy. It's a process to take the energy out of a movement. Does that make sense? So I'm going to start around, and I want everybody to think about an experience where there's something real was happening, whether it's the civil rights movement, whether it was the 60s, and or communes, or anything that has happened that you feel has been co-opted and become something other and had all of the energy taken out of it. Oh, that's right. So Tom?
Wow, I gotta think on
that one. Okay, Marwan?
I know. Black Lives Matter. That's a big one. The statement Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter, the organization got co-opted and got turned and just mutilated into something that was unrecognizable. And it just lost its core meaning. So I'm not supportive of the movement. I'm supportive of the phraseology and what it means.
Makes absolute sense. I'm going to pass it on to Banjo because he'll have something really interesting to say here. It's not speakers. This is being filmed. Nice. Okay. So we're trying to talk loudly.
My first thought was Homeland Security. Homeland Security was something that was devised as a way to seemingly prevent what might be homegrown terrorism. And then it became something that, well, because we have the authority to, we'll just name anything homegrown terrorism. And whether it's even a thing or a concept or not, all of a sudden it's something that everybody has awareness and aggression towards. You know, the term hippie is now a terrorist organization, if you didn't know.
Did you have one to start with, Anita?
Immigrants have changed to aliens.
It's okay. Again, there's no right answers. This is just ways to think.
You had me at that song. There's no revolutionary songs, and I could think of the Beatles. I heard you want a revolution. Yeah, and people rising up, and it just brought back the '60s. I was born in '62.
Yep.
My,
So yeah, I still listen to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, because to me, huh?
No, I'm looking at this gentleman claiming to be born in '62. No, you
Okay, and I know from last weekend some of your history, and I'm pretty sure you've got something to say.
73, honey. You look about.
Other people haven't helped you today.
Oh, she's like, oh, you're shutting me up.
I guess I would say the word feminism has been co-opted. I think that when we kind of emerged in the 60s and we're burning our bras and wearing clothes that were comfortable and not shaving under our arms and letting our freak flag fly. Now that very idea of feminism, and of course, take into consideration that I'm an older woman and losing my my elasticity to the young people, but I'm watching the music awards and every young woman on there is in the most revealing, skimpy teddy there is, telling me that this is new feminism. And I'm not buying it. But so that's my co-opted feminism.
I think Anita, I didn't quite hear what you said, Anita, but I was thinking of immigrants. That there was, the idea is, as an immigrant, the idea is to come to America, and it's the land of milk and honey, and it isn't. So, but hard, yeah.
Well, I was thinking about how Coca-Cola is everywhere. Coca-Cola? Yeah. And how they, everybody knows about Coca-Cola and how they use it to fish you in for under the sun. They're advertising it on just about everywhere.
I like to teach the world to sing.
Yeah.
Perfect harmony. And buy a Coke. That's a perfect example of co-opting. That is a perfect example of co-opting.
Very good. Yes. Exactly. That's perfect.
Yeah. That Coca-Cola did the most magnificent job of taking a movement and a concept and taking it over and selling a product.
Yep.
That is perfect story. Did you have any thoughts about it?
On that particular subject or this statement, I'm gonna say religion. More wars have been started on religion. Religion is supposed to be based around peace, love, caring about your other man, but people tear each other apart. It tears the world apart just because this person believes in this way, this person over here believes in that way, and that person over believes, and it just, they don't want to come together and see the truth that it's about caring about your fellow person. It's no, well, you don't believe my way, so you're wrong. and it's corrupted and corrupted by all that stuff. Just tears people apart. And I would say the same thing with, you in the 60s and stuff. Peace. The hippies going peace, love, and happiness. Now, to bring peace, we must go to war. To bring peace, we must do this. To bring peace, you must have this. And those are two big things that have always just like, really?
The hell out of you?
Yeah.
So I am a bit of a historian. It's kind of a lot of what I do, and it's how I look at things. So keeping my mouth shut at this point is very hard because I have a lot of history, a lot of knowledge that I'd love to just sit and tell stories, but that's not really what this is about. And as we're all talking, I'm reining myself back going, nope, it's not about that. It's not about that. We need to get back. The job here is for you guys to start understanding a different perspective and seeing things from different people's points of view. This is to get your mind thinking about different ways of looking at things and to understand how other people direct how you think by very cleverly doing this. Now, I have to stop right at this moment and talk about conspiracy versus a playbook. One of the things that's easy to believe a conspiracy theory, that people are controlling this, the Illuminati are out there, whatever the flavor or a conspiracy of the week is, aliens are controlling us, whatever. I just want to ask one question. We all have experience here. We've all talked to a lot of people. We've all lived a life. Just one question. Do any of you know someone smart enough to run a conspiracy? Yeah, to create a conspiracy. Anyone smart enough? And then there's a second question that goes along with it. If you know somebody that's that smart, are they charismatic enough to make it happen and to build the relationships required? And the resources. So do any of us know or have ever heard of somebody who is well off enough, smart enough, charismatic enough to create a conspiracy of the level that people say exist? Yeah, but did he have the breadth to create a worldwide conspiracy?
Hoarding heroin's a pretty big thing.
I have a thought on that.
Yes.
So it's not so much about the individual trying to create the conspiracy, right? I know a handful of people that could probably do it. The thing that makes a conspiracy is a certain amount of cloak and dagger behind the scenes, right? I don't know anyone who could do that and make all the people around them keep their mouths shut. That's the catch.
So the point I'm trying to make is it isn't a conspiracy theory. All the people who are the 1%ers who are doing this, they all think they're the only ones doing it. I'm saying it's more likely that they're narcissists who are broken and have no personal bonding to humanity and are doing this because it's the only way they can feel any kind of fulfillment in their lives. So when you think about that, hold on, Banjo. When you think about that, it comes back to the point of they're pretty much alone doing this, and they can only get as much breadth as they have because they have large organizations and lots of resources. They're also not very smart people, because if they were smart, they would realize what they're doing is going to cause a collapse that's going to affect them, and it'll all come down. You're looking, huh? Well, yes, but I'm thinking less visible. I'm thinking more the 1%, the Jeff Bezos people. Jeff Bezos is greedy and egotistical and narcissistic, but he's not smart because he's following a playbook. He's not creating anything. The playbook of Amazon is a playbook that exists for business. He's just taken it to extremes no one else has ever taken it to before. And he had a window of opportunity to play. He's clever within a realm, but he's not smart because he doesn't look into the future and see what the consequences of what he's doing are. It's all about him. It's not about anywhere else. The trouble about that kind of viewpoint is, and we'll go back to divisiveness, which is a tool that is used, and diversity. He takes away the diversity, which is the healthy way that we all exist. A healthy system is a diverse system.
Can I make a couple of statements on that? I think you're slightly getting off topic. I mean, conspiracy theory is different. It's a theory. It's an idea, and it takes people that and this is not to trash on people that are not intelligent or whatever, but it takes common sense to look at an idea and go, "Is this true?" And that's all it takes is an idea out there.
Yeah.
And you could throw an idea
But
out there.
and
We could throw Banjo, Tom, Heather, any one of us could throw a batshit crazy idea out.
and someone's going to adopt it.
And somebody's going to adopt it, and all it takes is 1, then 2, then 10, then 20, and blah blah blah. And then it takes those people just to add a little bit. It's like it's not coming to me right at the moment. It's like gossip. I come up to you and I say, so and so did this, blah blah blah. You go to somebody else and you go, so and so did this, blah blah blah. But you put your own spin on it. That's
Telephone game.
what conspiracy is.
Yeah.
It's just an idea. It's some idiot. And I'll agree with you on it's most likely some narcissist or somebody seeking attention. They throw some stupid, batshit crazy idea out there, and it just spreads, and spreads, and then people go, where'd you get it? Well, I got it from so and so. I mean, like this
So-
QAnon thing, it all goes back to
Right.
that person, and all of a sudden they're getting all the attention they want, and so they're just throwing shit at the wall.
Yeah, and
Throwing
you
shit at the wall to see what happens.
and thank you. You just made the point for me that there aren't really there aren't anybody in charge.
Talking about Jeff Bezos, and I'll agree with you that he's playing by a business playbook. And as a business person myself, there's a playbook you have to play by to build a business. Now, he's going for a monopoly, which is illegal in this country,
But unenforced.
but also where he's getting away with it is money and power. It's the money he's throwing at politicians to go, don't go after me, and the politicians are going, I want more, I want more, I want more. And so that you're
Actually,
trying to put two that are together that are not really together.
and actually, I wasn't. But you made my point for me before we got to that point, which is thank you for that. The point was that there isn't anybody in charge of it, and so the conspiracy is there. But he also made a second point that I was going to get to in a bit, which is say conspiracy theories are started as another form of co-opting a movement and co-opting change. Now he's right. There are a lot of nutcases that do it because it feeds them, but it's also true that people get paid to troll and create conspiracy theories to keep people being divisive.
And what I'll say about that is that also comes from the divisiveness of our own being, our own human being. You have governments, you have the Chinese, you have the Russians, you have, the English, you have the French, you have all these different, they all have their own agendas and plans.
Well,
And so
the leadership does.
They're willing to, if your agenda and plans align along with theirs, well, you're right, buddy. But if your agenda and plan doesn't align with theirs, they're going to throw that shit out there. And they've got teams of people that's all they do. America has teams of people that's all they do.
Absolutely.
And Facebook is a prime example. I use Facebook.
So
I don't look at and believe any of the bullshit on Facebook. I use Facebook for
communication,
marketing my business.
and actually we're going to get there.
That's it.
We're going to get there in a bit. So, and I agree with you 100%. But let's kind of guide into that because there's a lot of other thoughts I want to talk about around it. I'm just
Opening here, and I know you're wanting to go in, but you're starting
but
here.
I'm basically saying that there isn't anybody in charge making one thing happen. But there's a lot of people that are running a business playbook for one reason or another. And there are a lot of tools, and there's a lot of tools they use, which is what we're talking about really, is the tools that they use to separate us. And Facebook is a beautiful statement right now. But again, I don't want to get into that because I have a lot to say about that. I said a lot of it this morning, as a matter of fact, and it was loud and rather profane because Facebook just made some changes that just totally destroyed a year's work. And I was furious about it. I still am. But so I just kind of wanted to debunk the idea that there's somebody in charge. There's no grand power smart that is running all of this. It's a whole bunch of people breaking the system down. And that's just a kind of a very, very brief top look down, because at some point when we start talking about how things change and the movements to change things, what Coca-Cola did, you start thinking that someone's running that. And there really isn't.
I will say this I don't think, and this is again my personal perspective,
Yeah.
I don't think these people are looking long term. They're looking here and they're looking at money.
Quarterly
What
profits.
can I make? Jeff Bezos is a prime example. You look at all the shit he's doing. Okay, I'm starting my business in a garage to sell books. Oh, now I can sell products too. Oh, now I can. Well, shit, I'm gonna buy a fucking grocery company. And now he's doing. I just got an email today about prescriptions. He's now doing prescription medications. He's building himself a monopoly, and it's all about the green.
Right. And you know.
That's what he feels inside his brain. And it's the same with the guy that started Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yep.
He started it because he was just trying to put something in college to talk to his fellow buddies. And he will hook up with girls and talk to his fellow buddies, and but there was a small thing, and he started making money. He lost. It was a short-term perspective. He wasn't looking at the bigger picture, and he's still not looking at the bigger picture. He's seeing what's happening, going, well, shit, I don't have. It's not my responsibility anymore. I've got my billions, and I don't have the people to deal with that shit because they've allowed a system, a computer system, robotics to step in with algorithms and numbers to tell you what you see and what you don't see. And I've got lots of prime examples of that statement. That I used to see black green stuff all the time.
And now you don't.
I don't see any of it. I see liquor ads from big companies that are and big name peoples all the time. I don't buy that much liquor.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. The algorithms are there, and I'm going to tell a story right now. And I don't know how many of you have heard this story. It's a Cherokee myth, or a Cherokee story, and it's told this way: a grandfather's talking to his grandson, and he says there are two wolves. One's a dark wolf, and one's a light wolf. The dark wolf feels hate, and fear, and anger, and the light wolf is love and caring and relationship. And they battle all the time for the power of light and dark. And the young grandson looks at the grandfather and says, well, which wolf wins? He says, the one you feed. So the algorithms on social media get more money and profit from the negative than they do for the positive. So every time you look at something negative, whether inadvertently or not, because it looked interesting and it was clickbait, and you go to look at it, you're suddenly going to get fed 10 times the amount of those kind of articles than you do anything else. I teach a class periodically on the discipline of social media. And the reason I teach it is to help people understand how to keep their Facebook and YouTube more what they want to see and getting the real information as opposed to the fake information. But I will tell you, it is a tiring and ongoing, constant process. I have to spend an hour every day working to beat the algorithms in order to see it. So we are being fed negative by all of the social medias. And again, social media is a tool that should allow you to do outreach to people. And he's right.
And with that being said, is people have forgotten, just general people, whether they're on social media, you're the product. You are not the being served. You're being fed to other people to see this, that, and the other.
And you have to always be aware of that.
Click on negative, you get more negative, but it's also vice versa. It's also also vice versa. That's
Right.
how the algorithms work. When you break it down, you look at the mathematics in there. Because I had a really good friend of mine. He unfortunately passed away from suicide because
You spend time on social media. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make fun of.
but no, and he worked in social media and he did all that stuff, and he talked about how the algorithm is set to feed you what you want, because the more it feeds you, the more money. Well, what it thinks you want, the more. Oh, I like cat videos, so you're going to see more cat videos. I like, I like hate speech, so you're going to see more of that, or whatever. It
Do I have a thought on conspiracy theories? Social media.
We gotta move
Social
through
media?
there, but-
Yeah, they should be. Social medias ought to be paying us for our attention realty.
For us, for our attention to it and to what it puts out there. So I would, at this point, love to be able to move to any platform other than Facebook to do what we do. And I will tell you, any platform which is owned by Facebook, and so is Instagram, by the way. Yeah, but there's not enough reach, and they don't have the tools that Facebook has. We stopped using Facebook events because nobody pays any attention to them. I would get, 400 interests and 3 people going to an because people would like. The interest to them is like. And, I say interest is like kissing your sister. Doesn't matter. So we stopped using it because there was no way. So I started using the Google app, the Google form to get people to sign up for this event, and it works way better, and people actually engage and show up. So we use posters essentially to do this. We had to figure out a way not to use the Facebook tools to do this. Facebook still gives us an outreach to people that we couldn't possibly get to any other way. I have 1,600 people on my personal Facebook account, 1,666, I think, right now. And out of that, I talk to less than 100 at any given time. More interestingly, talking about alternatives, I play a game. I call it play a game, but that's really not what it is. I'm on a platform called IMVU, which is a gaming platform. It's a sim game. You have avatars, you talk to people. I went on there specifically to create relationships, and it is international. I have a room on there that mirrors the work that we do with Kitsap Resiliency Project so that I can try out the concepts that we have about partnerships, creating relationships, behaving like human beings. And I've been doing this for about 4 years. I've talked to people all over the planet in virtually every country. That's not true. I don't know anybody from South Africa that's online. But I've talked to people all over the world, and I found out something that is really interesting to address your statement a little bit about the different countries and the different people. Governments think one thing and they sell one thing, but I can tell you that the people I've talked to all over the world, and I'm talking thousands of people, all have very core desires, and they're all the same. They want food on the table, they want to feel loved, and they want to know that their loved ones are safe. They want some security. So if we're going to find a commonality, shouldn't we go there?
I 100% agree. All people, that's all they want. They want to be able to, feed their family. They want to be able to love their loved ones and do those things. Again, and governments can do great things. I mean, the United States government built the international highway system. So you can go from Florida to Washington State in a couple of days on a highway system that was built. But also, it can become very bloated, and ours has, I mean, massively on levels that is ridiculous. And then when you throw money in, something of value, whether it be, you know, tokens or whatever, then that human instinct comes in. I want more. I want to have more than you.
Let me talk about the human instinct. That's an interesting thing. Is it a human instinct? So I think that we need to talk about the difference between humanity and culture.
Here's how I think.
Mhm.
When you go back thousands of years to farmers that were farming, you know, and they would go to the market and they would trade
Mhm.
their products. Going, hey, you've got something I want, I've got something you want, let's trade some back and forth. They would keep all their really good shit for themselves and their family, and they would make sure their basements were packed full of the product they were selling to make sure it was good for their family. But now they have this abundance of product that they can trade, and they go and they see, you want my product, you want my product, you want my product, you want my product. Well, I
Okay.
just want a little bit of yours, a little bit more yours is good. Oh, I don't want any of your shit. So it becomes, I've got something of value.
I would argue that that's a more modern concept, and modern, I mean modern like the last few thousand years is modern, considering mankind has been on this planet for over 2 million years.
And I will agree with that. You know, but when you start throwing in, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, whether it be corn or grains they use or fruits and vegetables. When somebody has something you want because you're lacking because your soil wouldn't grow it, but you have something they want, but they're like, no, I don't need that much. It creates a value system.
No, I agreed. But
And-
let me ask you a question on this, going back to it. Do you think that's the way it has always been? Or do you think that is something that we have been taught?
No, I think it's the way it's always been. And this is why. Is we've always been tribal. Because this is human nature. We are a social people. We need people around us. And there's always been an alpha at the very top. The guy that was, and it's changed over millennia of decades and blah, 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 blah. But there was always that guy at the top. He was the king. He was the alpha, you know, there was the leader of the Native American tribes. He was the one guy. He was the guy that called all the shots for everybody else. But he made sure everybody took care of everybody, you know. But then this tribe had this, that tribe had that.
You've lost most of us. Yeah, I was gonna say. I just feel like we're getting off track. We've done this workshop before,
But this is important, and let me tell you why.
There's very important.
Well, and let me tell you why. And yeah, but he's taken us to a place that we were going to get to eventually. It kind of went there. And is everybody doing okay with that for the moment? Because we need to address this elephant in the room. Okay. So the truth is, and I work with anthropologists, this is not how we've always been. This is how our culture has developed since the Fertile Crescent. And the Fertile Crescent is the time about 15,000 years ago when we discovered agriculture, and then it became the controlling factor of our lives. Then we learned to do something called locking up the food for control. And that was the beginning of a cascading event of dominoes that brought us to a point where we are now, that we are capitalists, and for lack of a better word of it. And it's about all of that. Before that, you're right. And this is exactly the type of information that gets tied up into making a point that actually shouldn't or can't really be made about all of humanity. And you're right in a lot of ways. And you're certainly right for the last 10, 15,000 years, because we're taught to do this from the cradle. Because we see it as our survival, because it's the way the system works.
But isn't it also, and we were talking about anthropology and stuff, but isn't it instinctual?
No, it is not.
Wolves have an alpha.
We aren't wolves.
leader.
But no, and that's the part I was going to address.
Deep down we're still an animal. We are still an animal.
Okay, so
Yes, we have more-
Jack.
Wondering if he can run this workshop.
So let me talk about the alpha behavior. See, that's where we go off the rails. There's absolutely true that we have alpha, beta, and all of the pieces in between. That's how culture works. But it doesn't have to be a controlling culture. there are people that have different skills and different ways to approach things. And that's been twisted in our educational system to believe that the alpha is the one who's going to be in charge. It's pushed our entire capitalistic patting each other on the back and giving each other rights to do things that are horrific. Because,
I'm not
and
trying
I
to
know,
justify alphas or any of that stuff because
no, I get it.
I'm more interested in the diversity. But again,
But I'm just saying, open, be open to the
that's why
point.
we're at where we're at.
Yeah, and well, you're right, and I teach that in the next session of the workshops, and we discuss that. What we're talking about right now. Okay, what we're talking about right now is the fact that perhaps human beings are not, in fact, what we believe they are because we've been taught to. Perhaps human beings can actually connect to each other on a different level beyond that greed that we have been taught, beyond the acquisition that we've been taught. And perhaps if we can do that, we can change the rules. And we're actually, and I don't want to push too hard on this, kind of why I'm cutting it back a little bit, because there's a lot of foundational building we have to do to talk about culture in a way that people will grasp it, which is kind of why I was asking questions. So bringing us back from that a bit and watching Heather do a pratfall. Good luck. Okay, so with all of that, I'm going to ask a question here, and then I want people's thoughts on this because we've just covered a lot, and I want you guys to chime in now. Do you think people can connect on a human level?
Well, sure. I think animals connect with each other, and there's altruism in animals and what we call primitive animals. So there's, yeah, I think that all people have the deepest need to feel appreciated. And of course, we have taken care of their family, but yeah, sure. And if we see that that person, and that person, and that person, the basic need is to feel appreciated, then we can communicate. Then we can start to understand. And somehow, that person has taken whatever crazy stance on things because somehow he feels more appreciated or she feels more appreciated in a group or in her tribe or his tribe.
Give me that question again, young man. Please.
Okay, so
Thank you, dear.
we've heard a lot, and so I'm going to start off with a basic question. Do you think level beyond the capitalistic, the controlling?
Absolutely, market. Yeah, it's going to take some things. It could be the emotional factor. We can communicate on emotional factor because things that we're familiar with. A spiritual factor without religion. We can connect, but it's going to have to be a common area where we're both familiar with it and how we reach there, and we complement each other in that area. If it's emotional, if it's spiritual, a lot of times you just can't be too smart. I got to stay grounded and down to earth and keep it real simple, and people can. When that, say, the alpha comes out, I don't mind the alpha. I like to remain small and be the beta, but if they're going to be the alpha, at least lead us in a direction where it's worth going, where it's helpful to others. We'll connect, but it's going to take some work and a lot of service. That's where I'm at with that. Because I was listening to what he was saying, I was adding it up, and I was going, oh. And we're just trying to be people. With the situations we're dealing with right now, yeah. We will fall if we don't come together with this bacteria in the atmosphere. That's all I got. No.
Because in the 60s, we did come together with folks.
Yes.
And I'm really, really interested in what you have to say about this.
Oh,
country where there was universal health care. And, you know, everybody wanted everybody to have that. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what if we cannot get there, I really feel it's not just healthcare. It's in so many different. I mean, look at the mask situation and vaccination. I mean, it's just across the board. So
Anything, right? They don't get into wars, they don't fight anybody, do nothing.
If you do, they give you the booze.
Right, because they want to stay the way they are. Like, how come all of us don't do that?
Let's continue with the human question. We'll come back to that.
Okay, question again. Question.
Do you think that we
Her
can
accent's
connect on a
lovely.
human level, or whether our culture, where we are in our culture is the humanity, or can we connect on a human level? I think that was the question. I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. No more bourbon for you guys. Actually, it was just myself.
All right, say it again now. You don't know that.
What question were you answering?
What was?
Connecting on a human level. Connecting on a human level. Do you think we can connect on a human level? Is there something more to our humanity, or is what we understand as culture the way we are? And there is.
Oh yeah, I positively think we can connect on a human level, for sure. I mean, we have to be able to see beyond what we're doing on a daily basis. You know, we're so entrenched with getting to work, making the paycheck, getting home, getting a couple drinks and watching TV, go to bed and do the same thing over again the next day, right? Well, how do you look beyond that to help everybody else? You know, everybody's got to get to that point some way, somehow. We have to get people to the point to look beyond your everyday BS.
No, certainly pass it on to Ben.
And I like what she said, because the only way we can really look beyond after our daily living duties is it's got to be some form of service that we get back in that humanity sense, you know, because we're on the human level now, because it's like we all deal with the same things, you know, and those same things have to be taken care of. And that was healthy concern. So that means we have to do some form of self-service for our community. And when that does that, the community, I don't know how to use your word thrive, but when we're in productive and self-service, we're going to thrive in some areas where our community is going to be productive.
Can I just say, if sorry, Carol. If you thrive, I thrive. There is a fellowship. Yeah.
You want to hear this?
Yeah, I certainly know that we can connect on a human level. You know, we just it definitely takes some time, or there's like that automatic energetic exchange when you just know that you're gonna love this person forever, and you just met them or you just saw them, and you're gonna love this moment. You're gonna make a time to be their best friend because so you already there's that instinctive, almost animalistic response, that it's like this is genuine and I know it and I would like to cherish it and have more connection to it. But other than that, it is very hard to make connection with the majority of people you would come in contact to on a regular basis, unless I agree with the service aspect, unless there's service involved. I was just speaking with some Mormon ladies who I had come over and help me do this sewing project that we're working on right now. We're making a curtain for our show tomorrow. It's our very first show. We've been building this for a year. So we're super excited about it. And we've been desperately needing a helping hand. And we got 4 women to come over today for like 3 hours. And they said, this is beautiful because I would never have been able to make this connection with you guys unless, we were being in service. And she said, most people don't open up to us. We can't really connect with anybody until we are of service to them first.
What comes to mind for me, in regards to capitalism and how it impacts, humanity and basic connection. Have you ever seen somebody with like an addiction to spending? Right. And what do you need to feed that addiction to spending? You need your 9 to 5. You need your, trading of stocks. You need all the stuff that's going to get your attention away from what really matters, which is connection. It brings to mind an experiment that was done with rats, right? And these rats, they were given 2 water bottles. One of the water bottles had morphine. And so they took these took these rats and they put them in cages by themselves. And when they were disengaged from the community, they went to the morphine. And then they took those same rats and they put them in a cage with a bunch of other rats. And little by little, those rats that were tended towards the morphine weaned themselves off of the addiction so they could be closer to the community. And so it just goes to show that when you have connection, and like you said, when you're thriving, I'm thriving, we're thriving. When you have that connection and you have that community, it kind of makes the 9 to 5, the mundane, seem minute. Like there's more in what we have. There's more value in what we have together.
Okay, so here's a mind-bending question for you. And it's just a simple answers. Do you think that together we can change the rules under which we live today and make a more human future?
Absolutely. But I think we need to be able to learn how to listen deeply listen, and also empathy. And I think a lot of it comes from being able to be with the person and go past the labels. Just open up and just be there. Otherwise, if we're just labeling and not listening, there's no connection.
Mm-hmm. Before you answer, I'm going to ask Marwan something. So, so your boy Tony, you threw him in the deep end. How do you think he's doing?
Well, I think he's fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, just want to double check. You're up, buddy.
I'm not up. I was just holding the mic for you guys. I love you guys, but no, I'm in unison with.
Because you brought up labels.
Well, but labels weren't the question.
Okay, what are we going back to? Because the question brought up labels.
Well, she was saying beyond labels, but
Right.
The question is, do you think that we can connect together in humanity and change our future to a more human future?
So, I mean, that feeds off the first question,
Okay.
right? And the first question was actually kind of 2 layers, I think, because you were asking, can we connect on a human level, or are we stuck with the culture around us? So I think that's kind of a choice in some ways, right? So, a culture implies a larger sense of community. And when you get really, really big, city of Bremerton size, right? There's no way you're going to meet all those people. So you cannot connect with all those people on a human level, but you still have to live with them. So I think it's two different layers there.
So would you like me to define culture in the way that we mean it here?
If you want to.
So humans need culture. It's a given. I mean, psychologists, sociologists, they'll tell you we all need culture. We've had culture all of our lives. It's how we live together in a group, as Tom just talked about. But culture is not us. Culture is a framework that we agree to live under. And so I'm going to ask a question here. What if, as society has formed and grown for the last several thousand years, our culture has become a reflection of the bad lessons we've learned and the need to control, and not a reflection of our humanity? And I say this because when I talk about culture, people say everything from, well, you're talking about music, you're talking about dance, or you're talking about, tribes, or you're talking about Japanese kabuki. What are you talking about? Culture is a framework. It's a social framework by which we agree to live. Our laws and legal system reflect culture in kind of a perverted way to a great degree. So when I talk about culture, I'm talking about the framework in which we agree to live. And if you look at culture the way I look at culture, I think of our culture, not all culture, but our culture as we live in this world, largely in the United States, as a cancer. I think that culture is a cancerous cell that's killing us. It's preventing us from doing what we know we need to do to change the situation in which we're living in 50 years, we're going to be extinct. And it's not going to happen at once. It's already happening. So when I talk about culture, I'm talking about the framework we have being broken and cancerous, and we have to find a way to come together as humans and reprogram it. Because we can. It's also organic. We just have to do it consciously. So that's a spoiler for the second session, because that's where we're going to be going with that. But in this case, when I talk about culture, I'm talking about the cancer. And I will spread farther saying that we have a lot of symptoms that we spend a lot of time trying to deal with. Racism, genderism, sexism with genderism, I guess, is the same thing. Ageism, all of the isms are symptoms of that cancer. Is that something we can agree on? That's a definition that we can work with?
I can work with it, and that's what I understand what you say.
Well, I should hope so, because you heard me say it often enough. Sorry, no.
I feel like culture largely. I think you're correct in a lot of aspects. I also feel like culture, and more in like a, how do you say, a little more of a, in a wholesome way, is a people's and their relation to tradition.
That is absolutely a part of culture and reflected, but the overlying framework in which we live by has been co-opted. I like that word again. It has been co-opted by corporations, by politicians, by religion, by all of the things that are about controlling human beings, and they all look at it in a very short-term way. So to get to the punchline, this exercise that we're going through, these workshops, are about changing our mind, about changing our culture, and developing relationships, which has actually already started since you three already know each other well. The whole point of this exercise in the 12 workshops are to go through and look at things in a different way, empower you to make changes, give you the tools to make the changes, and then have you go out and make those changes. And hopefully, because we need this to grow, to have you be able to teach the workshops. Because if it's left all to me, we aren't going to get very far. I can only do so much. Does that make sense? Anybody running out the door?
No, because all you're asking for is help to move in the same direction. When you say culture, and then you said framework, and framework, what we're trying to get to is constructive living.
We're trying to
So-
change the cultural framework to a human framework.
Yeah. So when I see mass media presentation, they're throwing so much at us, we start decaying because there's too much there. We're simple. When I was listening to what he was saying, what we needed and what we to move every day, you know, the simple norms, it's like either I can't handle it or there's too much out there. So
Overwhelmed.
slow down, and I just get just what I need to keep me normal, you know, or healthy. I don't know what the normal is, but just healthy, you know, psychologically, emotionally, you know, physically, you know, I just move in that direction.
And that's a wide variable. Healthy covers a lot of ground. You know, some people think healthy is not suicidal today. And some people think healthy is I've got all of the things that I need and I'm feeling better that way. Most of us think healthy is we have good friends, we break bread with our friends, we have a reasonable life, and we're not dead yet. So where is healthy for our humanity? What does a healthy human look like? That'll be the next question. What's a healthy human look like? That's a good start. Pick up the microphone, say that loud so.
Waking up on the right side of the grass.
That's a start. Come on, Tony, take a whack at it. You're at bat. Yeah, what is healthy? What is a healthy human? What is your best vision of a healthy human?
That's when you say that's wide, but it has to have the trifecta. It has to have the healthy spirit, a healthy emotion, a healthy presentation. I would say, you know, that's probably the outside superficial look. But
How about relationships?
that was what I couldn't find and I wish I had, but healthy relationships. That's real. You know, when there is conflict, there's respecting the space, keeping an open mind without making it divisive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes I just don't want to be in an argument. I want to keep an open mind and hear the opinion to see if there's anything that I can understand from your perspective, you know, and still grow without being toxic. When I'm away from all my toxicity, I see health. The bad thing about it is that I'm not being toxic. Sometimes I don't want to be. So I try to stay around healthy people.
Amen.
Sorry, what?
Well, I think the question at the moment is morphed into what does a healthy human being look like?
Oh, well, this healthy human being drops out. I'm not sure I even want to like go through the fire of doing this with our culture. I don't like the culture as described. I'd rather create my own, make my own community, feed the things that I want to in my community. And I think you can do that as a parallel, have a parallel culture at the same time, foot in both worlds. So,
Okay. Jen?
I think as human beings, for us to be healthy, we need some safety nets. You know, instead of living on the edge all the time, you know, financially and you know, I just think about well, say let's take a single mom, you know, having to try and get the kids up in the morning and she's maybe no transportation and get them to daycare and then she's got to get to work and then you know, hopefully there's some healthcare involved in that so that, you know, but I mean, when you're constantly living on the edge of worrying that, you know, how are we going to make this? How is it going to all work? Oh, you know, so many of us lived, and I don't know, but I've certainly lived where I was, you know, one paycheck away from complete disaster. And I know that there are so many people.
60%.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just think that it's a dreadful way to live. You know, it's a dreadful way for a country to construct its culture. You know, I mean, it's not right. Well, right. Yeah.
That was the propaganda.
Now we'll go to the single mom.
Yeah, I was a single mom for lots of years, and yeah, so I know what it's like. And I have two daughters now that are single moms. So yeah, but the kids are they're in their teens, and one's already out, and one's still at home. But I think balanced is the word I want to use. It's hard to be balanced at times, you know. Balance takes a lot of integrity, a lot of work, a lot of planning, and a lot of people don't have the integrity to do that kind of thing. So I'd say a healthy human being is balanced.
And some of us are lucky enough to have people like Terry kicking me in the ass to keep me balanced. Shalom.
I immediately think of the amount of happiness that somebody has. So if somebody is, you know, normally walking around and they're normally happy, then I would assume that they have the things that we've all talked about, the relationships that are supportive, the jobs that fill them up, you know, with joy and fulfillment, you know, and the ability to make ends meet. Automatically, you know, I think of the natural aspect of health and body, and you can see by skin color and weight and you know, the bags under your eyes, you know, the how fast your hair is turning gray at what age you are, you know, are you, you know, and just general health overall. And there's genetics that go into that, but also if you look at somebody, you're like, wow, you probably need some more water, or you probably need to quit your day job and go hang out in the woods and, you know, lose the house, lose the mortgage, you know, maybe, you know, and maybe it's about finding somebody who's going to give you that helping hand to take care of the kids or to give you a break. And so I think a lot of a healthy human lands on physical appearance, but also everything else that goes into that. And it's all within yourself too. I feel a lot of health comes from how somebody feels, and I feel like, you know, any illness can be solved with a mindset. So many illnesses I feel that most of them can start healing with the mindset that you can, which is kind of everything that we're going through right now. Is we're all here saying we can do this, is where it's going to start and where the change is going to happen.
I hear a lot about like finding the connections that assist you in getting what you need. Honestly, what comes to mind is a little tune, if you don't mind, and especially in relation to how somebody goes into their day to day, which is it drowns them out. They like they're losing themselves in what they're supposed to do with their day to day, whether you're a you know stockbroker trying to maintain or a single mom or whatever it is. But the tune says, "When there is light in the soul, there's beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. When there's harmony in the home, there's honor in the nation. When there's honor in the nation, there's peace in the world. And I feel like really where it comes together is you know, we don't really have the basics set up to let us know that some of our basic needs are those connections
Working on it.
that help us. Yeah.
All of us together here, we're working on it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But you know, a lot of the people, you know, and this is one of the reasons why we're getting on the road and trying to impact people in service to them, bring people together, is to give them the information that they weren't exposed to. What I need is to wake up and go to my day to my 9 to 5. You know, what you need is to know your neighbor,
Right.
because they have some things
Right. But you have
in
to start
excess
here.
that you might need.
Yeah. Let's start here. and
Absolutely.
We can expand. We need to start here. That's what we're doing.
You have to
Right?
start local. So I want to tell you the way that we that do the work see this process. Okay. When we set up a table and Terry and I are at the table to talk to people at an event, first thing we do is open a puzzle box. And Terry sits down and she puts the edge of the puzzle together because she's way faster than I am at it. And she's done it several times now, so she gets it quick. And people look at it and go, well, what does that have to do with resiliency? I said, well, so what Resilient Ecosystems, the organization that we are, the primary organization is pushing the Kitsap Resiliency Project until a leadership group from Kitsap County takes over. Our job is to create a framework, much like the culture. We've created a framework for building communities and coming together and bring some ideas to the table. But we're only the frame. We won't know what the picture looks like until you bring your pieces to the puzzle. And see, that's the difference in the cultural framework. The cultural framework is driven by the structure that we currently have, the powers that be, whatever that looks like. Ours is looking at it from driving it from a grassroots network, from the people that come to the table to make the change. Also makes it very hard to co-opt because the strength is coming from many points, not one. So each of you hold pieces to the puzzle. You've said several times you look at it from a healthcare perspective. I'll tell you flat out that I don't think of things that way. And it's important to know that somebody does. It's a piece of the puzzle I'll never even think of. Banjo and Camo bring their pieces of the puzzle together, which are things I would never consider. I know I sit in board meetings with them, and I'm always leaving the board meeting just kind of like eyes wide open, swallowing hard, trying to grasp all of the things I've just thought about and learned. It's not easy. It should be, but we have to learn how to communicate again. We have to learn how to build human relationships. We have to learn how to trust. And yes, we have to learn how to listen.
So, do you have like a go pack survival thing for yourself? And then if you have neighbors or friends, do they know about it? I mean, how
Well, I should ask you that.
get together and say, hey, I've got this, and this.
So-
we have a lot of stuff.
Right.
that's
But do you talk to your neighbors about what they may have?
related. So it's like,
So let me draw a picture for you so everybody's really clear about this, because I deal with this every day. The things I know that I wish I didn't know because I've been doing this work for 20 years are enormous. The things I know about what is going to happen and what's coming are things that I just wish, like everybody else, I could take that Matrix red pill and just go back to sleep and forget about it. But I don't, because I have hope and I have care that people like you will come to the table and we'll figure out how to work together to make a change. And that you'll bring your pieces to the table and we'll see what that looks. But here's one that's on the books today. This year is 2021, correct? Okay, so January 26, 1700 at 9 p.m., something unique happened on the west coast of the United States. January 26, 1700, 9 p.m. We know this because villages in Japan were wiped out by a tsunami, but there was no quake. And they recorded it because Japan was far ahead of the West Coast of the United States in the way of connectedness. There wasn't much here but Native American tribes at that point. That was 321 years ago. Now, I think his name was, I want to say Goldfinger, but I think it's Goldfinch. A scientist went out and heard about the idea of of Cascadia Rising, a big quake and tsunami that happened. And he got the money and he went core tapping all the way down the coast of the West Coast of the United States. And he created a map of 10,000 years of occurrences. This quake happens between 250 and 450 years. So we're well within the window of this quake. When this quake happens, we're talking about magnitude 9 quake 90 miles offshore that's going to be felt pretty much as a magnitude 9 to here, but it's not going to be a central quake that rings out like we're used to. It's going to be the entire coast of the United States from South Vancouver Island to Crescent City, California. We know this because it's happened a lot of times. So when this happens, and this is like, okay, so we're talking about the economy crashing. We're talking about COVID, which we're in the middle of. We're talking about possible nuclear war because somebody gets really stupid, and we have terrorists now that possibly have nukes and whatever else we're terrified of at the moment. We're talking about climate change, and there's facts about that quite honestly, if we don't get our shit together like in the next 5 years, my daughter may not see her 50th birthday, and that's not acceptable to me. But Cascadia, when Cascadia happens, Kitsap County becomes an island. We're cut off. We have 300,000 people. Here's a fact for you. FEMA says we'll be without power for up to a year.
Where are we collecting all of our resources?
We will get there. Okay, I'm getting there.
I get so like energized.
Yeah, it's okay.
You and I can be a part of the apocalypse pamphlet making team.
Yeah.
Because I need a team.
Okay, so we have 3 days worth of food. No more food will be coming in. We have no power for up to a year. And by the way, I was at an emergency management meeting here at the Kitsap Department of Emergency Management, and it was a group of people talking about what could happen and what everything else. And PSC happened to be there, and I said, so FEMA says we'll be without power for up to a year. What do you guys say? Oh, no, no more than 4 to 6 months.
Did someone forget how many months were in a year?
Yeah. So for people, okay, so that's on winter versus summer. Hospitals, how much power do you think a hospital has to maintain their power if they're still standing?
They have generators. Yeah,
But how much fuel? How much fuel do they have in the generators? 2 weeks.
Who's making that trip to the gas station that just got cut off by the earthquake?
I don't know.
So first responders, they aren't going to get to you because the roads are going to be impassable. Let's talk about Fukushima for a minute. 2011, 9 magnitude quake followed by a tsunami. The nuclear power plant is what we hear about, but let's talk about what else happened. Trees fell across all the roads. No one was getting anywhere. They were trapped with that nuclear power plant. Same thing's going to happen here. We aren't going to drive anywhere. First responders aren't going to get anywhere. So let's go back to talking about the preparedness. I know lots of people who have stockpiled everything you can imagine, and they are sitting in their homes going, rah, I'm ready for anything. Just one question. How long do you think just a minute, getting there. Give me 5 more minutes and I'll get there. Thank you. So how long do you think those people are going to last when you have 300,000 people looking for food? How much ammunition can you store? And when you go, and let's be real, human here, you think you're going to be able to shoot somebody, but can you really? It's a real psychology question. Can you really shoot somebody, especially one of your neighbors who's coming to your house for help? Because you're there alone and you're going to survive no matter what. Because that's the story you've been telling yourself, because it's the bullshit that we get fed. That we're all individuals and we're all alone. We're not going to live at all in that situation. That person's dead, his stuff's stolen. Okay? Because he hasn't connected with anyone else and no one else has got his back. So let's paint a different picture. Okay? You do stockpile because you need to be able to have food. But you got to make sure your neighbors do too. You need to find out which of your neighbors is a nurse so that people who are actually planning for this kind of stuff can get emergency medical equipment to you to take care of your community. And we know the roads are impassable. So how are we going to deal with this? We're going to put together a Pony Express group out of the farmers and the horse ranchers here. And we're going to have the gathering points. So we're going to have cash points where we're going to have drops. And we're going to be able to get food and supplies to people in their neighborhoods. Because at some point, if we have mapped neighborhoods and connected communities and networks, we'll know where to bring the things, because you're not going to get anywhere and you have to take care of your people. Doesn't that sound like a smarter way than stockpiling and hoarding your guns and thinking about shooting your neighbors?
Actually, I read what social researchers said that in dire consequences, dire things happening, people actually don't bring out the guns.
They come
Fact
together.
is, they come together.
Exactly.
Yes.
And you see that time and time again. All we want to do is do it first. We want to have network communities, so that becomes a piece. Now let's talk about the other darker side of this. Yeah, there's looting. It always happens. Usually when people are angry, and usually when it's a racial situation. In an emergency situation, you don't see looting all that much. Katrina, there was virtually no looting or very little looting. But let's take care of that problem too. Okay? Let's look at it this way. So instead of being afraid of the police, you create relationships with the police, and they are engaging in their local neighborhoods because they're not going to get anywhere else. And they go to the local Fred Meyer, and they work with the people in Fred Meyer and the people in the neighborhoods to go to Fred Meyer and secure all of the food in an emergency and make sure it gets distributed. Now let's take a little bit step back from that. How does food continue to get there when we have 3 days worth of food and 300,000 people? So what if we got together and created industry here in Kitsap County where we grow our own food? And we create over 1,000 jobs doing so. And we create healthy, organic, nutritious food that can be bought reasonably priced to the local markets, which are already buying local food. They would buy more if it was dependable. And that the markets were already in the supply chain. If we did all of that, then if we secured the markets and made sure that the markets were standing and that the people were all working together for that, then you'd have a natural distribution point when you could get food to those markets and they can distribute it to the communities. Does that make sense?
There's one large problem.
What?
Corporate capitalism.
Well,
corporate Fred Meyer in on this. You have to get corporate Safeway, Albertsons.
I have an answer for that question. Okay, so 2015. Anybody, you know who Asda is, right? Asda. Okay, Asda is for those who don't know, Asda is a wholly owned subsidiary of Walmart in the UK. In 2015, they did a sustainability report. Interesting outcome. Rocked them on their socks. I actually have a copy of it if anybody wants to read it. The sustainability report said one thing: 95% of our fresh food is at risk due to climate change. 95%. Now, maybe corporate Fred Meyer, who is a whole entity unto itself, won't get this, but let me tell you who will get it. Costco. Costco spent $50 million 2 years ago trying to shore up its supply line for organic food because they see the risk. What if a local entity was able to supply all the organic food they needed reliably, no matter what happened? Kitsap Fresh delivers the food, and they get to local farmers to grow, but it's never at a quantity that can feed the entire county. So I will tell you where I'm leading with this, and I wasn't going to get here for a while, but we've been pushing a project called Food for All. And this project came around because of my past, where I was the executive director of an organization called the Clean Technology Trade Alliance. The Clean Technology Trade Alliance. And I did that for a decade. And this is where I learned a lot of stuff I really wish I didn't know. And a group called IHS came to us and said that the state of Chihuahua in Mexico lost 80% of its agriculture due to desertification caused by climate change. And they had an outmigration from the Copper Canyon to Juarez. And Juarez became a crime spot because you had 100,000 people that had no jobs and no future anymore and were recruited by the cartels. And we need to figure out if we can reestablish agriculture in this region. So we did 7 years of research and talked to a lot of companies, and we said, yeah, you can. You have to go back to passive solar. You have to go back to thermal mass. You have to go back to actually putting things up that work. And you can create grow centers that will grow 365 days a year, recycle the water, work on a fraction of the energy, and create jobs. They are, in fact, putting these into Juarez Valley now. We could do the same thing here. Matter of fact, we're working to get a grant to do the first two of them. We've been trying to rally farmers to actually engage in the process unsuccessfully. Sure. The Kitsap Resiliency Project and Resilient Ecosystems. The people running the workshops. Yeah. But in order to do this successfully, we need people. We need people that are willing to do outreach, people who are to push the project. We have another little project called Power for All. How many people here are familiar with what Germany's doing? Okay. 2011, go back to Fukushima a minute. Something really interesting happened that we don't talk about in the United States because it doesn't behoove our utilities to have this conversation. Germany voted to go off of nuclear completely. In 2011, it was an overwhelming majority vote of their parliament voted to go off nuclear. In 10 years, they have closed all but 2 power plants in their country. The power plants that are still open share borders with other countries and supply route power to the other countries. So I asked PSC in that same meeting, why don't we push more renewable energy and why do we do this net metering thing? And they said, well, we can't do renewable energy because storage is unreliable. And I said, but Germany's doing it and they're doing just fine with it. And they have a wide variety of things that they're applying. Well, that won't work here. What they're really saying is that will hurt their profits for the quarterly profits and their shareholders.
Because there was no money in it.
Yeah, because it would cost them, they'd have to invest. So the Power for All project is this, and this is really why we need a grassroots movement, is because if we get enough people to say they want this,
we'll take care of it.
So lost my place. Okay, so Power for All is basically, if we get enough people together, we create a petition and we go to PSC and we say, this is what we want to have here. And we make them say no, which is not an easy thing. They will dodge around and try and prevaricate and try and make it sound all kinds of different ways and try and co-opt the idea so they can make it stop. Because those are the tricks that they learn how to do. But if you push hard enough, you can make them say no. Why do we want them to say no? Well, if they say no, that's the 800-pound gorilla declining the opportunity. And then we have Kitsap Public Utility District and Peninsula Light, which are public utility districts, different rules. They will not step up if they see PSE as a competitor. But they might step up, actually probably will step up, if PSE says no and a large amount of the people in Kitsap County are demanding renewable energy. So there's a very important point here I want to make. There are other counties that have gone to alternative utilities and public utilities, and they have failed to provide the promised price breaks to their end users. Here's why. Instead of creating a renewable energy infrastructure, they are competing with the 800-pound gorilla by buying from the same sources, and you can't do that and win. They can buy a whole bunch more power from Bonneville than any public utility district can.
Seattle City Light.
Seattle City, they generate their own power. Yeah. So there's a different rule there. The same rule we're talking about. So if we start putting solar panels on everybody's roof, and I'm going to debunk some things now. Well, they have to be faced south, or they have to be this, or they have to be that. Bullshit. The more solar panels you have on the roofs, the more light you capture. It's simple math. If you're building microgrids in the communities and all that power is generated, and it doesn't matter where the light is during the day, you're gathering some power and you're storing it, guess what? It's more efficient and everybody gets covered. Germany has a different priority than we do. Their priorities are this: the building first, the community second, the grid third. And yet they seem to have enough power in the grid to take care of everything. So, right. And so we add wind to that by putting wind in the canals, and we eliminate the NIMBY issues, because because we've already set the groundwork where people aren't going to go, not in my backyard, it's ugly, because we created a grassroots network and educated people about the benefit. So this is what they do in Germany. You pay for the infrastructure, not purchasing of the power. And when I think about that, I find, wait a minute, this is a utility. Why am I buying power? Why am I not paying them for infrastructure? Isn't that how a utility works? Well, nowhere in the United States. And by the way, we have a majority of the utilities in the United States are not public utilities. They are privately owned utilities. So the way you change your thinking about something helps you create a new future. So while we have to create networks and learn how to work together in neighborhoods, we can also come together to change our infrastructure future and be more secure. So now let's imagine for a minute what Cascadia looks like after the quake has happened, and 60% of the people do not have homes because they're not up to earthquake standards, and all of the shorelines are wiped out, and we're not going to see anybody for a while, but we have enough food and are generating enough food to feed the people here. We are generating our own power locally, and we've created thousands of jobs while we're doing it prior to this. Is that not a definition of thriving? Yes. And we're happier in the process of doing it. Nobody can do it alone. And I am not here to tell you how to do it. I'm telling you that we have a framework that we can help you get the skills to do it. I'm not arrogant enough to say that I can tell you the way to do it, because I don't know the pieces you hold. And I'm really excited to find out what you bring to the table. I want to see what the picture is going to look like when it's done. Not that it'll ever be done, but I want to see what the picture looks like.
Are you the hub of Resiliency?
I am the executive director of Resilient Ecosystems, which is a 501c3 that is driving the Kitsap Resiliency Project. What our hope is, and what we're trying to develop, once we develop these workshops and we start developing communities of things, and you folks are training other people, that some people are going to step up and I really want to do this, and we want to hand it off to you. We want to help facilitate it. We want to help get the grants for it. We want to help make it so. But we're too small and too insular to make the decisions for an entire county. That has to come from you. Can't come from us. Also, I will tell you that I can't be the face of it. If I lead this, history has taught us, if nothing else, that it's really easy to co-opt it when you've got one point to attack. But if it's a movement of people, and Banjo can talk about the Occupy movement, people think Occupy died, but it didn't. All of the progressive candidates that are being elected are directly from the Occupy movement. our way of changing our thinking. Why did Occupy survive when other things got co-opted? Because it had no leader. It was about the people coming together. So how's your perspective these right now? How you feeling?
Where I was really, really impoverished, scared as all get out. And one of the things that we need to pull together as a community is to help each other get past the fear, the support. We're nothing without a community that supports us. And feeling alone is one of the worst things in the world. And so there's so many different aspects of it.
I'm right there with you. I've been damn near homeless doing this project because it doesn't have a paycheck for what I do, but I know that it needs to happen, and I've invested everything to make it happen. So, but that's just me. I'm not asking that of everybody else. I just want you to come together. I want you to learn some skills, and I want you to grow some, and I want you to hope. And when we put our big fest together in January, we just put this on the planning table, we're going to have a community fest, and we're hoping to get the Kitsap Pavilion over in Bremerton and bring a whole bunch of groups together to bring people in to start exploring what community looks like. Because whenever I put a post on Facebook about community, it gets 10 times the reads and the comments of anything else. The minute I say community in it, people are hungry for it. We just need to come together and help educate them on what is possible. You wanted to say, sorry.
Yeah, you were asking what our perspective was like. And it's, for me, right now, it's the same as it always is. Every time we have board meetings, every time, I speak with our African orphan family of African orphans over there in Gambia. And it's every time that I think about Cascadia Rising. And, I just think about, I'm a lot, food for thought, a lot of things to think about. And I'm also thinking about the moment at the Global Day of Climate Action that we had the other day, our event, and it where everybody came together. If we can bring everybody together, and here we are, everybody's together, and then it's like, now what do we do? So we're all here in this moment gathering, being like, okay, we're gathering, we're getting the people, and I also have that thought where it's like, okay, now what do we do? It's like, let's start taking those actions. And that's where my perspective is at, and Heather too, where she's like, let's do that. Let's figure out what we need to do. So it's like, that's where my head's at. All right, what's first step, second step? That's where my head is at.
Amen. Okay, so Marwan, I'm going to throw it to you. I want you to recap your thinking because you've been too quiet for too long. One second. Marwan is our newest board member for Resilient Ecosystems. So I want to introduce him. And he is, because he walked in the door and we did it to him, he's now president of the board.
The door. Did you see? I have pictures of everything he did. He is amazing. I'm like, what are you doing?
I'll give myself a horn for that. You guys can't hear it in here, but they can hear it on Facebook. What I'll say is in what I don't want to do, and it's important, right? We talked about diversity, and here I'm going to withdraw and not really give my thought on, different topics. But what I'll say is, I started this podcast in February, and it's called The Conduit. And I designed it based on the fact that a conduit is two-way, right? Information can flow both ways. And I think that's one of the things that has been missing. And there's a lot of things that have been missing. And one of the challenges that I issued was for everyone to go out and try to meet 5 other people, per month. Because if you're going to change something, right, that the cliche, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? And so by encouraging that, right, then you are going to that diversity. You know, how does this gentleman think? How do you think? What are our commonalities? You were talking about your differences, right? And how divisive that is. But if you come and you say, hey, we're going to have this gathering and we're going to build community, then we can shift the paradigm, right? And so it's up to us to do that. I also say that power is not given, power is taken. And so we have to take our power, and we can do that. And so that's what this looks like. So, you know, I'm excited to be here. I believe that with all the tragedy that we have faced over the past year and a half, all of the divisiveness of religion and politics and everything else, we have an opportunity. We have never been in this space together before, right? So that there is proof that we do have power and we can change things if we dare to change it. So that's what I would submit. That's my thought on just kind of sitting here and being here. And every conversation that I've had today has been very friendly and engaging, and it's there. And people want that. You know, folks want something different, but it is about going against the grain, cutting against the noise, and daring to do something different. So I appreciate it, and you know, I will do the best that I can.
Awesome.
One minor thing, and this comes down to like what Camel was saying, and kind of Heather was reflecting that, and you were saying you don't want to be the head, and and this is kind of where I want to go with what my statement is I think maybe, you know, as a group of the head of the head of the committee, you kind of need to come up with a playbook for people like Camo and others to start knowing where do we start, because there's all this stuff here, but where do you start? So coming up with, as the committee or whatever, you know, is just setting out a playbook. And it doesn't have to be lock, stock, and stone, but it starts giving people paths, whether, you know, this person takes over this section over here and this person takes over this section. It's giving them a playbook going, okay, this is how we're going to go about this. And I think at this point, that's what's missing from what I'm hearing from like what Camo and Heather and a few others saying, is a playbook. So, you know, I think that's where, as a committee, maybe you all need to really sit down and come up with a playbook.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, we are developing a playbook, but yeah.
Everybody put in their playbook, what they can put in.
They're pieces of the puzzle. Well, we bring it to these, and that's what's forming right now, is the way to get there.
but I want to get back to that same.
He's going to answer your question too.
All right, so looking for solutions. That's where we're at,
Well,
right?
but he's asking for a playbook that tells people where to start and what to actually. There's doing and being, and they want to do.
Yeah, so I can do, but then what do I do with what I've done?
I think a lot of it has to do with one, intuition, my role and what that role does, and then pursuit.
You mean besides kicking me in the ass constantly and keeping me moving?
My role and how I can serve. Yeah, I mean, like, you know.
I still want to hear you sing. Your voice is so awesome. I'm sorry.
So the idea is okay, concept. Hypothetically speaking, I'm not personally religious, but let's say hypothetically there's a God, right? And this God, whatever it looks like, has assisted you through your experiences and through the role that you might have chosen on the way down or was bestowed upon you when you got down. You have been assisted through your experiences to have the passions and the interests that you have and have developed over time. Now, let's say everything happens for a reason, hypothetically speaking. should everything happen for a reason, don't you think you got those skill sets, those passions, those desires for a reason as well? So now is the time, if we really want to change the world, as I like to say, think about all your favorite actors and actresses and comedians who through doing what they love changed the world, the musicians, so on and so forth. You want to change the world? Entertain yourself. Do what you love to do.
Mhm.
And as we've been talking about it here this entire time, do it in service.
And with others.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So I do want to bring one point up to both Heather and Camo before Heather starts cleaning up the that's alcohol abuse.
I am cleaning the floor, mister.
So I will note one thing. If you want something to do to take action, I can absolutely give you a task to do. The question I have, because I don't push this on people, is do you have the time to do it?
Depends on what it is.
See, and that's
Or is it online?
that's the other side of the coin, is that do you have the time to do that? Now all we're asking you is
to do it. How's
right.
that?
The passion and the desire is a very strong piece. But here's the thing I'm asking right now, and this is the only thing I'm asking right now, is to open your mind, think about things possibly being different, because we are taught not to imagine, and we need to learn how to imagine again. We have to learn how to use words in a meaningful way and make sure that we're clear. More importantly, we have to hear other people's words and feed them back to them so that they understand that we're hearing them. Okay? And that's part of what, and that is very hard. And that is part of what we do the workshops for, is because when you come out of here, we want you to have a different set of tools than you have now. And we want you to reach out. Now, if you want to do something really powerful for this movement, find farmers that you know, people who grow that you know, and get them here. Because we need to talk to people who know how to grow, because we will need them to help develop the grow centers. And the grow centers are cool. And the grow centers are something that's on our table right now that we're working on, that I'm actually writing the business plan for right now. And we already have identified investors, and we already have identified government grants to pay for the initial ones. But there's what we need the farmers to run them. Otherwise, it becomes another corporation, and we can't afford that. So yeah, we are doing work. There's a lot of things going on in the background. If you want to know about it, I'm happy to sit down and talk to you when it's not one of the workshops, and let you know all of the things that we're doing and what we're working on. Terry will tell you that I'm never not working. She kicks my butt frequently trying to get me to not work as much as I do. So yeah, but yeah, if you want to do something active, we can certainly give you that. Camo, I am not giving you anything active to do because I know what your life is like, and you guys are already doing the active things. They run the Revoluia's Medicine Show and Circus, whose first show is tomorrow night at 3 to 9 on Ralston Road, Rodsall Road, out in the Southward. And Banjo is basically going to be an evangelist on the road, talking to people about what we're doing here. And let's think about the long term. If we're successful here, we get food for all. We get groups of people working together. Heather, can we, for a minute? Can we, for a minute? When we're successful, people are already watching what we're doing in Switzerland, Mexico, Korea, Japan. I've connected to people all over the world. I'm working with a group called WIRA, which is a think tank. I'm working with people that are looking at community development, and they're waiting to see what happens. They've been reading our stuff all the way along. When we get successful and we get traction, this can take off like a virus, and people could be working all over the world to building networks and changing the entire world. And I'm very interested in seeing a more human world. I just don't know what it looks like yet. But I'm sure you guys will tell me.
I think it starts with the mindset. I said this last workshop, and I'm going to say it again. You and I can make a change. You and I can make a change. You and I. You and I. You over there? These ladies right in front of me. You guys back there. We can all make this change. We can all do this. And we've got to feed the positive wolf. Our positivity, our belief that we can do it. And let's keep talking about it.
Yep. So I'm going to end this one with the question I asked last time, and I want you to think about this. And actually, next time I'm going to ask you to give me your thoughts. So I want you to imagine, this is an exercise in imagination. Heather, Tom, just 1 second. I'm giving you an exercise. This is an exercise in imagination. I want you to imagine a democratic government, much like ours, without a political element. What would that look like? Well, let's imagine it for a week and talk about it next Thursday. So did you guys feel like you got something out of this?
All right, y'all. You didn't get it from the beginning, but I will give it to you now. I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, y'all, that is the first workshop on resiliency. Come back again Thursday at 6:30 p.m. We will broadcast again. There is still space. We are located at the Black Ring out at the South Kitsap Mall. So if you want to get involved, if you want to participate, please come on out. You can go ahead and reach out to me. I will make sure that you get a hold of Mark and get signed up. It's not too late. This is a very stimulating conversation. And I think what's important here is taking the information back and creating and cultivating community and relationship where you are. All right. So we will be back again tomorrow night for another show. I do need to apologize. You know, we had a show scheduled at 5, but this was kind of brought up as an idea yesterday, and I had already created the show for 5, and so this was coming on at 6:30, and I didn't get a chance to come on and tell folks to tune in a little bit later. So every Thursday we will do this. It'll be a little bit later, so I'll change next Thursdays. But you know what? You will never miss any of our shows if you subscribe, like, share, and set your reminders. You can follow us on Twitch, Mr. Cameron 124, or Marwan Cameron on YouTube. You'll find me under the Conduit, and then Facebook under Marwan Cameron, or Gather Together, Grow Together. All right. So for Econosystems, Resiliency Econosystems, I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit, and we will see you next time.